Alright, guys. Part 3 of our 5-part series of movie podcasts. Again, I'll be featuring Jack Williams with me.
So,
Today we're going to be talking about Whiplash.
yeah. We actually just got finished watching it.
Yeah. I've seen it before. This was Jack's first time, so.
Yeah, so, personally, I really liked it. But I said something we'll talk about later, a little more depth, that I think kind of set Elian off. I said, it's a good movie, but I don't think it was better than La La Land.
I think it was a pretty good movie. Probably out of the 5 movies that we're doing in this series, I'd say that Whiplash is definitely my favorite, just because the movie encompasses like one of my favorite genres of music, jazz. So that definitely made it very relatable for me. A lot that goes on in the movie too is pretty accurate as well.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. There were probably like 4 or 5 times over the course of the movie where I turned to Elian and I was like, that's like pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Definitely my favorite, most memorable is when they went out on the stage, like it was the very first big performance they were doing.
Yeah.
And like there were 4 judges in the front row and then like 5 or 6 audience members. And it was just like
it's pretty much with every performance or like competition you have, it's like a group.
Yeah.
Same with high school. It's not just like college, but like most of the time your audience is the judges. So
that's exactly how like my school feels.
Yeah.
I mean, of course you have like the schools that are obligated to be there just to watch it, but usually it's just the judges and like a couple parents.
Yeah. I don't know. There were so many things in that movie that were portrayed so accurately. It's just hard to not appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. Well, the main character himself, portrayed very well.
Mm-hmm.
He it's a little exaggerated, but he kind of portrays how it is to be a musician that works really hard. You know, to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I've never had a teacher like Fletcher in the movie.
Yeah.
I've had really good teachers, and I have had a couple teachers that were like hard asses that made like kids cry.
Yeah.
But they've never overlapped. Never had like a good teacher that made anybody cry.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I kind of, if I continue with music, which I plan on doing, I do kind of hope I come across that teacher who like is just so inspirational, but like also such a hard ass and perfectionist that it like really gets to the kids.
Yeah. Throughout high school, the one thing I noticed, and it was pretty common in my English classes, but I noticed that as I got farther into high school, not just with English, but like the teachers in any subject that were never happy or satisfied with my work. Yeah, it was pretty frustrating. But I realized at the end of the course or at the end of the year that I had grown because of it. And I noticed that especially with English, because I remember my sophomore year, we both had Miss Stewart.
Oh yeah.
The high workload. And like, it goes to really show that you don't really grow in any way or fashion without really pushing yourself. And that's kind of a major premise and theme in this movie. It's just pushing yourself.
I definitely agree. I think the hardest I've ever been pushed musically was in my like all-state and all-Easter experience.
Yeah.
I mean, just not pushed hard in the sense that like they were yelling at me individually or anything, but that's where I've seen the most like I don't think aggression is the right word, but the most passion out of my conductors. In all state, like they wouldn't call out individual students, but they would definitely call like they'd be like, basses, you sound terrible, or like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where you get like, I mean, you kind of you get insulting, but in order to inspire and to like frustrate towards greatness, I guess.
Yeah.
I've definitely not on this level, but I've had some kind of experience like that. But that leads into one of my questions to you. Do you think we're meant to sympathize with Fletcher? Excuse me. Do you think we're meant to? Is he the villain of the story, or is he more just? I don't know. What role, I guess, do you think Mr. Fletcher plays in this?
It's interesting. I think I think it's safe to say it is justified. He makes the point that if you can't handle the pressure and the aggression, not just from him but just from anyone in general, you're never going to become great.
See,
So-
personally, I really agree with you. I really sympathize with his motivations and everything, and during the part of the movie where like the kid was reporting him, or like agreeing to report him, I thought that was a dick move, right?
Yeah.
But there was just one, like right at the end is where it lost me, where he intentionally sabotages main character Neiman's performance. Really intentionally does that just to make him look like an idiot. Like if he hadn't done that, I would have agreed with you entirely. But just there was nothing that wasn't meant to inspire Neiman. That wasn't meant to push him, even though it eventually did. It was just meant to make him look like an idiot in front of a group of professionals.
But yeah, it kind of made a full round at the end when he played Caravan, and the whole discussion he had right before the performance of, Charlie Parker getting a cymbal thrown at him, but then the next year he came back and had the best solo of his life. It kind of made a full circle with that argument. I'm sorry, with this claim that him pushing, Joe Jones pushing Charlie Parker perfected him, and the same happened with the drummer.
I think it would have made more sense, say, if the drummer they played one song the drummer knew, right?
Yeah.
And then he messed up and he got scolded and he almost walked off stage, but he came back and did that, right?
Yeah.
But this wasn't a you messed up and I need to correct you, an attack on Neiman. I mean, it was putting him in front of a bunch of judges who he even said beforehand, like, if they don't forget things, and they will secure the fact, like, they will make sure you don't have a future in music. He puts Neiman in front of these judges, and then make sure that he messes up. I mean, he devised a way to make sure he looks like an idiot.
Well, yeah, I feel like it was all part of his plan to motivate him still, because he knew that this was his chance to shine, because he was at this really big gig with a full audience, as opposed to the other gigs that they had,
right,
for competitions where they weren't full. And then he took the liberty to start his own song that he had already knew, and then he ended up playing it perfectly. And we'll get into this, but like Caravan, the arrangement they used in this movie for Caravan is easily the best arrangement I've ever heard of Caravan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many out there, because it's a pretty straightforward song, but the arrangement was amazing they used for it. Really technical piece too. It wasn't like an easy song, like Whiplash. I'm not a big fan of the song. Mm-hmm. The arrangement they made for the movie is I don't know, it feels a little watered down to me. The original song was written by Hank Levy, I believe, and it was actually written for the Towson State, jazz ensemble back in like the late 70s.
Yeah, my dad plays in that. He never shuts up about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love him. But back to your point about being part of his plan, right? Like it's like a test almost for Newman. I definitely disagree. I mean, that might have been his plan, but I disagree with it as a tool to inspire Newman. I mean, even Newman in the movie said, "Isn't there a point? Isn't there a line to draw?" And even though Fletcher responds with no, that there is no line, you have to push it as hard as possible, I agree with Newman. I think there's a line. I think there's a point where you're gonna just discourage somebody so much and mess with them so much that they don't want to pursue this career.
Yeah.
Even if they're Charlie Parker talented.
I don't know. I disagree. I feel like the motivation's there. It's like you just can't stop. At least that's how I am sometimes. I just won't give up on things that easily.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I've just never had that thing where I don't think I've ever had something in my life where I was that discouraged by somebody who I knew was professional in the industry that I would still keep pushing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, too, like with you, I feel like a lot of things never are really too difficult for you.
I mean, I definitely, I agree that I definitely push myself more towards things that I'm just better at. You know, like I enjoy math and I enjoy music because those are things I've always been pretty good at.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't really tried to. I haven't tried to delve into subjects like English that like I'm just not that motivated.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a shortcoming because in a sense, I remember playing in a combo with you, and like this was completely new for you.
Right.
And we didn't have music, and like a lot of the times you don't know what you're gonna do. Just like in the movie, you're put in these situations where you don't know what's going on from the beginning of the movie to the end. He's put in these random situations where, from the beginning, he's been entered. He's basically been recruited to the new band, the better band, in a sense. That's a new situation for him.
Right.
And then at the end, he doesn't know the song. He pulls a new song out. So when we performed, it was kind of like that same scenario. We had to play St. Thomas.
I got you.
And like you play the head, but like once you get once you play the head, you get to the solo section, and then you have to, even though if you're not improvising or soloing, you do have to improvise your comp.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you're comping. And I feel like it wasn't written out for you, so it was a little frustrating.
No, I agree. One part of that, and I'm not trying to. I definitely agree with the shortcoming of mine. But one part of that is we didn't get to practice. We never practiced. We practiced once before
Oh yeah.
like right before the show.
I have a lot too.
Yeah, I'm just not very good in those situations. I'd like to be practiced.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm so used to like, I mean, every year for all county jazz band, usually I was more prepared than most, but tops we had like a week or two to look at these songs and bring them together.
right. So with Newman's preparedness in the movie, do you think?
You mean Neiman?
Is it Neiman?
Yeah, that was Neiman.
It was Neiman.
Yeah.
I thought it was Newman. You're right. It was Neiman.
Yeah.
It was like, how long have I calling him Newman for?
Honestly, I forgot his name until you just said it. I know it's Neiman.
So Neiman. So he's a very dedicated and practiced person as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think it would have benefited him or not to have just been naturally talented? You know, not that he's not talented, but if he was somebody who didn't have to practice like that, who didn't have to sit in a practice room for hours on end and play until his hands bled, do you think he would have been a detriment, would have been a benefit, would nothing have changed?
Okay, well, I'm gonna kind of look at the whole idea of being a talented musician. I think talent can set you apart in many different areas, but I feel with music, it's not the same. I feel like you start kind of at a base level with music, kind of similar to everyone else. It's not like a sport where a quote unquote talented kid would be a kid who had good genetics, and just had higher potential. I feel like for music, those factors aren't really at play.
I disagree. I think there's a lot of factors that can play into being somebody being a just naturally talented musician. I mean, some people are tone deaf. I mean, that's just a thing that people have, and so by virtue of that, I mean, there's the opposite. There are people who are born with really good, people who are born with perfect pitch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. You can obviously develop it, but there are some people who just have perfect pitch, and it's like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
the ability to identify or just match pitch.
Well, there's different kinds of perfect pitch. There are people who actually can tell based on frequencies. So like,
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't know if they can listen to a pitch and give you like, oh, it's 240 hertz or whatever. I don't think they can do that. Maybe, but I know some people, it's based on frequencies, and some people it's just a really good sense of it's like a super good relative pitch.
Oh,
so
okay.
So for example, let's say you played an A 25 cents flat. Somebody with the second kind I was talking about probably call it an A, but somebody with the frequency would be like, that's not a note,
Yeah. I guess I actually wasn't aware of that. To be honest, like I knew some people like might have hearing deficiencies, but I didn't. I guess I was kind of ignorant to the fact that they could be somewhat, bad at hearing different separate frequencies.
So I think that there's and it's beyond pitch too. I mean, there's people with better senses of rhythm. There's people who are just, they have a better knack for memorizing things. Photographic memories are just, more, I guess, mathematical brains tend to help with music. Sometimes.
With the subdivision and reading rhythms.
Right. I mean, just things like that. So I think you can definitely have a naturally better musician, but I think that's what we saw in the movie. So before the first performance, the guy who was the main drummer, who got kicked off because he didn't have the piece memorized.
Yeah.
He was an example of somebody who's probably talented, right? He relies on the music, but he was there because he was talented. Mm-hmm. And then someone like Neiman, who spent hours in a practice room until his hands bled, he knew the music in its entirety because he'd sit there and bust his ass for like hours learning it.
I mean, there's a quote. How does it go? It's hard work beats talent until talent works hard.
Yeah.
I don't know who that's from, but I've heard that quote before. I mean, that directly applies, I guess.
So I guess my opinion, I wanted to phrase it to you, but I think my opinion is that Neiman benefited from not being, I guess, as talented as he'd probably like to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always a benefit to have to work a little bit,
Mm-hmm. So you said that you really liked the arrangement of Caravan. I want to pick your brain about it because I haven't played Caravan before.
Yeah.
And I'm not a jazz musician, obviously. So what about this arrangement made it stand out to you?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the arrangement was made specifically for the movie, and you can tell because it's very drum intensive. It's made to make the drummer look good. That's one thing. The other thing too, these are like specific. They have usually on a song like Caravan. I'm pretty sure you would have a trumpet solo from the arrangements I heard, but you had a trombone solo. And when I thought about that, I was like, that's interesting, but it makes sense. And this is kind of a blanket statement I'm gonna make, but I'd say out of like all the instruments in the band, like some of the less impressive solos come from trombones.
Okay.
They're not like, when you hear a good trombone though, there's like no doubt, but the solo itself in the song was, nothing crazy. And I think they did this on purpose. They wouldn't want to give the solo to a saxophone or a trumpet and have them kind of like steal the show or piano, because those are heavily rhythmic instruments. Trombone, you're kind of limited in a sense, and like they did that.
It was more downplayed, you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want that to be remembered. They kind of want to have a drum solo be emphasized, and they don't want to have a solo overpower, or be better than the drum solo.
I thought it might have been a callback to the student he was talking about that died, maybe.
Oh yeah,
the trombone kid. No, but I definitely agree. I think that's a really good point, music-wise, that they didn't want to overshadow the drums. So what else about the arrangements about too?
The arrangement's a really tough arrangement too.
Mm.
Like, they picked an arrangement that is like it's a very technical piece.
Is Caravan like usually a pretty easy piece?
Oh yeah, the act, like if you listen to the original song, it's really straightforward. It's like a simple rhythm. It's like da 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 da. It's like straight quarter notes.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's so much room to be creative with that song, and they took all the liberties of making the song into a great arrangement. It was really nice to hear.
Yeah. And then one thing we were talking about earlier, the story. So
yeah.
I said just kind of offhand after we watched the movie that I really liked it. Probably my second. I don't know. It's probably my second favorite movie we've seen so far of the three, but I really like La La Land, and my reasoning is that I think the story in La La Land is superior to Whiplash.
I mean, it's like a love story. It's a pretty straightforward love story.
Right.
I feel things that are kind of different and stray away from, what's mainstream quite refreshing, and I appreciate it because, it's not an easy thing to do to kind of go against the grain or do something different, and especially with this movie, there were some like shortcomings with the movie, like the whole romance thing just kind of felt forced in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't developed much. It was just kind of there to reinforce the whole idea of him being super dedicated to mastering his craft. That was really the only purpose in there.
Right.
It was just kind of there to like, hey, like remember, he's putting everything on the line to be a better musician. He's even like dropping this girl who you've seen for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Well, and that's part of the thing is that I think in terms of a single story, Whiplash might be superior with the idea of this kid wanting to become a really good drummer and things keep getting in his way, and I would think it was really strong. But I think La La Land really succeeded in having multiple stories going on and seeing how they interweave. Like, for example, we mainly focused on Ryan Gosling's arc, where he wants to be a jazz musician, but he hates the current state of jazz, and he's kind of deciding between selling out, doing what he loves. But in that movie, you see how that affects his relationship, and you see how Emma Stone, how her goals and her dreams also play into that. So you really have like 3, maybe even 4, but I'd say 3 main kind of stories: the relationship, Gosling's story, and then Stone's story. All 3 of them interacting.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the argument with it being a better story because the ending was pretty stirring emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But it still wasn't like anything. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary as far as like, your typical love story.
That's fair.
I guess it's not fair to say that Whiplash is better because they went against the grain. I just appreciate them for the fact that they tried. And not only did they try, I think they did a pretty good job.
Oh yeah, they definitely succeeded. But yeah, I kind of wish. I kind of wish, and I know that you're gonna say this was good because it's not conventional, but I do wish there was like a falling action at the end. They ended right at the climax, right? They ended.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, no, but I mean.
It's almost kind of a. It's not really a pun, but like, in a sense, it's funny that they did that because when you think about music and some of the very basic rules of music, is you resolve. You always resolve.
Yeah.
This movie, there's no resolve. It's like ending on the 5, not resolving the 1. It was kind of like, oh, that's funny.
I was thinking more kind of going out in a high note.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's...
And it's funny because when you think about it, jazz is known for being unconventional. It's known for breaking rules. And this movie doesn't resolve.
That's fair.
Yeah, it does a lot of cool things that like when I watched it over, I was like, that's actually really really neat.
Like the parallelism with the beginning. So the beginning, it starts with a very slow snare roll,
that builds up.
Not even a roll. But then it slowly builds into like this crazy fast roll, and then right at the end of the movie, the exact opposite happens, where he's doing this crazy drum solo against Fletcher's wishes, and he's in the middle of it, and then he starts doing a roll. He starts off fast, and keeps getting slower and slower, and like he's coming to like a dead stop. Fletcher comes over and says like, "Bring it up, man.
Yeah.
Come on."
Yeah. I think there were some other parts to the movie and the story that were a little exaggerated, but I appreciate that they did them. I mean, every scene they were rehearsing was just kind of funny. It was extremely exaggerated. Like it would be super rare to find a director as fierce and aggressive as Fletcher.
Right, and I'm sure, and part of it was definitely played up for comedy. Like when he's in the hallway And he's like, "Oh, little girl, you're gonna be a pianist. Maybe you could join my group." And then he walks into the room. He's like, "All right, cocksuckers."
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Was really good.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then just like the constant the constant name calling, the constant belittling.
Yeah, I mean, he had the three of them shuffling back and forth on the drums to see who could get the rhythm right.
Yeah.
And he told the entire group just to take an hour or two.
Yeah. There were so many good things about that movie. Not so much that was said, but like things that were implied as well. And the movie is really strong when it comes to being accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack, if you were to give this movie a rating on our refined and very very precise scale, what would you give it?
Probably a dotted half note tied to an eighth note.
Dotted half note tied. Okay. I'd give it a whole note. I think it was a pretty solid movie. I'd say it was accurate. That's so important for me. A movie's being accurate. It was relatable. You know, it touched. You know, it had a little place in my heart because I'm a jazz musician.
Right.
Also, it was just well done. The cinematography too was really well done.
Oh yeah,
Shots.
nothing to complain about that.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, it was really well done.
It was a gorgeous movie. I especially liked the color, which I know is kind of like it was very yellow, especially when they were in the rehearsal, when they're on stage.
Yeah.
Which is just interesting. I don't know. It was visually interesting more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well.